The biggest mistake that I see people when they set rates based on mileage is going off the current tax deduction rate. As an example, so like 2020, back when I wrote this article, the IRS tax deduction rate in the United States, 57.5 cents per mile. In 2019, it had been 62.5 cents per mile. It actually went down 5 cents a mile from 2019 until 2020. I mean, really, what the fuck, IRS? Why are things going down? Okay, but can you see how going off that rate could seriously impact your profitability? If you are just going based on what the current tax deduction rate is, that could go down. And if you are setting rates for 6 months in advance, or weddings a year in advance, or 18 months in advance, and now your tax deduction rate is going down, like, you're really screwing with yourself. So also, what else is wrong with the IRS deduction rate? It doesn't take into account any wear and tear on your car. And the IRS rate isn't the only thing that fluctuates. Gas prices do. So if you book a wedding in 2023, because that's when we're doing this video right now, for a 2024 wedding, and you're just going off that current tax rate, that's pennies. Like literally, it's a cents. Okay, it's not even, there's not even dollar signs attached to that rate. Okay, so that is not enough. If you're doing, if it's, I don't know what it is for 2023, but let's say it got back up to 62.5 cents. I'm hoping, if I were to do my research before this video today, I would have known that, but I'm hoping that it's at least 62.5 cents per mile now. That's not even a dollar. Gas prices, at this point where I am in Virginia, is about $3.50 a gallon or so. Some of it's a little bit cheaper, some of it's a little bit higher, and tomorrow I could wake up and it could be like $3.85. Depending on your vehicle and what you drive, you might get way better gas mileage than I do. I drive a minivan. I get shit mileage, okay? I could have a big SUV, or I could have a electric car, or a hybrid vehicle. Gas prices are going to fluctuate, and your mileage and your fuel efficiency is going to be different for every vehicle that you have. If I am basing it off of that IRS rate, that's not enough to cover my gas. In today's economy, not nearly enough to cover my gas. So now I would be paying to go to work. It doesn't take into account if that in a year from now, when that wedding happens, gas is up over $4. Now I'm paying even more to go to work. And no, you can't retroactively go back and be like, I need to charge more for travel because gas is suddenly so much more. I remember when that happened last year and gas was up over like $7 or $8 in certain parts of the country. And everybody in the wedding industry was freaking the fuck out because they were like, oh my God, it's so much more expensive for gas right now. And I set my travel rates a year and a half ago. Or they were still in the situation where they'd had weddings from the pandemic that had gotten pushed back into 2022. And here they had these rates from essentially what was 2019 for originally a 2020 date. They got postponed. It was now happening in 2022. That's 3 years worth of normal gas rates raising. And now they had this huge spike after, what was happening over in Russia and their invasions and this and that, all these things. And it was like suddenly huge gas spikes. And everybody was like, oh my God, it's costing me so much to go to people. So if you're just going off the bare minimum, that IRS tax rate, you're already potentially really fucking yourself over, even with normal gas price fluctuations. But God forbid we have something else that happens in this world and gas prices spike again. That's what you're going to be dealing with. So definitely take into account how all of these different factors play into one another. And besides, even just that 62 cents a mile, that's just really, really low. That's one's not even covering your gas. Is it enough to even get an oil change? What about tire rotations? What about getting new tires? Things on your car break down. I know we own our cars and we have to drive anyways, and it's a part of the cost of owning a vehicle and running a business, but your business, if you're using your vehicle for business purposes, the business should be covering those expenses. And if it's not, then you need to make sure that you are charging more for it. We're gonna learn to level up our business, and we're gonna start with our travel prices for 2024 weddings, guys, okay? When you set your rates based on mileage, make sure that it's high enough to not only account for keeping your car cared for and gas prices, but the other factor is the time that it takes you to get there. You should never be working for free, okay? That's why we have travel fees to begin with. We should be getting paid for the time we spend driving to our brides. All minutes should be accounted for in your pricing, even driving. And then also, what is the other factor that really comes into when a bride asks, well, why is there a travel fee? It's not just for gas, it's not just for the wear and tear on our car, and it's not just for the time that it takes us to drive there. We are taking our business to them. That means that we are packing up all of our products and we are spending all of that time packing, going there, setting up, packing it all back in again, putting it into our vehicle, coming home, and then setting it back up into our studio location for those brides. All of those minutes need to be accounted for as well. So hopefully I've opened up your eyes and made you realize why that tax deduction rate is really just a really, really shitty starting place. We really should be going way, way more than that because it has to account for all of these things. Now, the other thing might be, okay, well, if I'm charging based on mileage, is that going to be one way or round trip? That's something that you're going to have to answer for yourself, but a question that's going to come often with brides. They're going to be like, well, is that travel fee one way or round trip? So make sure that you've got an answer for them. And better yet, include that in your welcome packet or your frequently asked questions page on your website to avoid having to type it out for them over and over and over again in your emails. If you haven't found my golden emails template bundle, this is a great resource for you. You can purchase it and download it today. Start copying, pasting. It has that kind of stuff in there. It has a template that you can create on Canva for your welcome packet, and it's going to break all that information down there for you as well. And there's a really pretty page dedicated to how you break down your travel fees, so it's super easy for your brides to understand. The other thing that I want to bring up when it comes to one way or round trip, personally, I recommend it always being round trip, unless when you're setting that, you already double it at the outset. So for example, instead of it being, say, $1 a mile round trip, so $1 a mile there and then $1 a mile on the way back. If you just double it and say it's $2 from there to the venue, and then you just make that one way, you're already accounting for the time, the mileage, the gas, everything on the return trip, but you're not phrasing it to your bride that way. So if you're like, well, I don't want to make it round trip because then it makes it seem so high or whatever, I mean, logically, brides should understand if they have to pay for you to get there, they got to pay for you to get home. You don't just teleport. You still have to pay for gas and all of the reasons why they had to pay for you to come to them. They got to pay for you to get back. But you can just double it and just put it out there and just be like, no, here's just how my mileage works. It's all there. You figure out, you Google in, here's the venue, here's my starting address. It's this many miles times whatever. Boom, and then they don't have to double it again on top of that. It can be a little bit more palatable, so to speak, less sticker shock for them, but it's still going to account for the return trip as well. Or you could just start with the lower number, but just say that it's round trip. However, it's going to make more sense for how you want to explain it to brides. You can try it one way and then explain it the other way. So you could start out being like, well, I'm just going to include it and it's just going to be one way, the price is doubled. And then if you have people who have like sticker shock and it sounds too much and you have some pushback on it, try just breaking it up. Cut the price per way in half, but just let them know that it's round trip. Sometimes the way you phrase the price is going to still be the same, but the way you phrase it to your clients just makes it a little bit easier. How many times, obviously before like Amazon Prime and shipping was free, did it say, okay, if you spend X number of dollars, the shipping is free? And so we're willing to spend more money to get free shipping. but we end up spending more than what we would have in the first place. It's like one of those little like psychological things, like, yes, we'll spend an extra $20 to save $5 on shipping. Or, sometimes ending things in 0.97 or 0.99. $4.99 or $4.97 looks cheaper than $5. The difference is a penny or 3 pennies. But to our brains, we're seeing that number start with a 4, so it feels smaller. So sometimes just changing the way you present your prices can help to relieve a little bit of confusion with our clients or push back and just make things flow a little bit easier. So don't be afraid to play around with how you present your numbers. That doesn't mean that you have to discount. It could still end up being the same total, but sometimes seeing things broken up into smaller chunks makes it easier for our audience. Sometimes people are like, no, I put things into a package, and then seeing the whole total there at the end, they don't feel nickel and dimed. Your audience, you know them best. You should be setting your prices and displaying your prices in a way that feels most in alignment with your clients. If you're not sure about that, I have a whole entire course called Unique as Fuck. It helps you to really do a deep dive into your unique audience, your target market, your dream brides, to understand how to present information to them in the best way possible so that everything feels in alignment. I'll put a link to that below, and it's always included on my website. You can go ahead and you can find it, or you can just go to beautybusinesscollective.co/uniqueaf, and you can go to the sales page and learn a little bit more about the course that way too. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, for sharing, and helping to support my dream of empowering the bridal hair and makeup industry. I will see you back next time.